This past week, my brother, was wild.
Yeah.
I want to kind of just get your thoughts and opinions on the No King protest and the the crybaby, the weeping baby at the parade. Nobody came to my parade.
I think
Mm,
he, he lives in a world of delusion. And, I think somehow he had convinced himself that this was a great idea and that they were going to be, just throngs of people out there,
mm,
just
mm.
ready to watch this spectacular, event. And it was the complete opposite,
Yeah, it really was. The mall looked empty, man.
It was empty. I mean,
Yeah,
we've been,
yeah,
you've been here long enough. I've lived here all my life. You've
yeah.
seen them. You've seen the mall when it's full. It's on a regular weekend in the summer with just
There's more
tourists.
people.
There are more
There's
people
yeah, there are more people.
when there's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
event
yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah. That looked bad. But it was really embarrassing. You know the one scene that they keep showing when you have the tank going down the street
Oh yeah.
and you hear it squeaking
Oh yeah.
and and it's like nobody. It's for me when I saw that. I said two things to myself. There are two things that came in my mind. First of all, he got what he deserved because nobody wants that.
Right.
But the second thing, it really made us look weak on the world stage.
Oh, very
It
much
made
so.
us look it made us look pathetic. It really did.
Yeah, very
That
much
was
so. You know, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can guess what he was hoping it would be in his mind. I guess. I just
mhm.
think that it's just even it's just totally out of character for who we are supposed to be in the world. I
Right,
mean,
right.
even if it had been well attended and all that, I just think it's just a bad idea. That's why it's never been
Yeah.
done before. I don't understand. This dude, and I think, and that's kind of like one of the themes that I want to bring up. Maybe
Mhm.
not today, but we can talk about some other time. But Trump is full of bad ideas. I don't know how many times this guy has to have bad ideas for people to start, coming to the realization that
Mhm.
this guy is not good at what he does. He was
At
born
all.
into privilege. He's not good at what he does. His
Right.
tariff policy is a bad idea. It's not
Yeah.
working. This
Right.
that this
Right.
military parade, bad idea, not working.
Mhm.
That
Yep.
calling in the National Guard again, bad idea. Now I understand that people want to say, oh, and it's true, he's doing it for optics and he wants to instill fear in these
Mm,
in a certain group of people. I get all of that, but
mhm.
when you look at the optics of it, and I was doing what I was doing last week. I was going in between Fox News and other news organizations. It had really gotten ridiculous in Fox News because they
It
were,
got insane. It got insanely ridiculous and extremely insulting.
oh,
I'm sitting here like, you're really telling us this?
right,
You
right.
guys, you guys need to switch over to the other channel. In fact, turn the camera just maybe about 45 degrees,
Right,
and you'll see that none of that stuff that you're focusing on
right,
is happening over there.
right.
You know,
We've all seen in this country unfortunately, several times where law enforcement, not usually the National Guard, but law enforcement has confronted crowds and it's been
mm,
violent. We've seen them
right,
from
right,
water
right.
hoses to dogs to everything else. They were
Mm-hmm.
showing these. I turned to Fox News, and this again, it was that Christina, whatever her name is. I forget. That
Yeah.
sister's on there, just hyperventilating, talking like something's happening, and there's
Mm-hmm.
nobody in front of these law enforcement people with shields. I mean, they're
Right,
behind,
right.
like they're filming behind the police and or the
Yep.
the law enforcement.
Right.
Then the closest people to them are like 100 yards away.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like,
And
what are you all talking about? And then she said, look at what they're dealing with. And they put the camera up because apparently they were by a condo that had balconies. I don't know if you saw this part, that had a
No, I didn't
balcony
see
like
that.
maybe two stories up, and there were 4 or 5 people looking over the side with cameras, with both regular cameras and phones, filming and
Uh,
taking pictures. And she was like, "Look what they have to deal with. People might throw stuff off of there. They got to deal with people from on top." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing coming out." She was just creating things that weren't there. They were shooting
yeah.
tear gas, and the tear gas was landing in an empty street.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
people around, but it wasn't like they were scattering people. People backed up a little bit,
It
but
wasn't anything close to what she was trying to sell.
nothing.
Now, not one bit of it. And the part that really is just exhausting is that she's saying it. You can see that it's not happening. And yet, if this was not the age of social media, maybe what you're saying could probably be believed because you don't have other media sources being able to contradict it
Mm-hmm.
in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're doing this, and you see that nobody is really doing anything. What you said, like people out in LA, they're saying that, hey, that's like maybe 1%
Right.
of the city right there.
Right.
You go down the street, there's nothing happening.
Right.
So they want to keep pushing this like state regime media type of attitude at Fox. This straight propaganda. The right hand, the right arm of their super media machine at the GOP to just spread lie after lie after lie. But one thing with that parade, though, where they try to push that parade, you even have GOP senators saying they're not with it.
Oh, well.
And there was something else that I read. I don't know if you know this could be the case, but they said that during the marching, you had the soldiers not in lockstep.
Oh,
And someone said that is a sign of protest when you see soldiers do it.
well, I don't know
I
if
got to
that.
look it up.
Yeah, I don't
But
know if it was whether they just didn't care or it was a sign of protest or they're just bad. I'm not going to say they were poorly trained. I'm sure they're trained well, but
right,
they
right.
were not in step.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
my partner Joan kept pointing out because we watched a little bit. We
Right,
went out
right,
to dinner and then we came back and we were like, let's see what's going on with this thing.
right.
And she was like, look, they're just not in step. They're just like, look at guys walking down the street. And
Yeah.
it was so maybe it was protest. I mean, I'll tell you what.
I don't know about it, but I got to look that up. I had just saw that before you came on. I
Well,
said,
I can believe it. I do know
yeah.
that I have seen military parades. I've just seen, forget the foreign ones. I've seen our military march before, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was projecting anything into some of these guys' faces. They didn't want to be there. These were
No,
not guys who seemed like enthusiastic about what they were doing,
at
especially
all.
the ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw any of the ones that were like they did a whole tribute to the different wars. Some of those guys looked like they were like, what is this? I'm not in, it was crazy. They just didn't look like they were really proud to be out there.
But not only that, did you see when they was in, I think they was at Fort Bragg. They changed it from Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
And he had all those soldiers behind him.
Right.
Well, they said that they screened the soldiers behind them. They also didn't want out of shape soldiers
Oh, well,
behind
I
them.
imagine
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
that's the case.
I'm sitting here saying and then they only wanted soldiers that were in line with his political policies.
Right. That would applaud when
that would applaud and all that. So
yeah.
when you look at all this fakeness that is going on with this guy, and you look at how they're trying to turn peaceful protests into something that it's not, and they're failing at trying to get that done. You have politicians being killed.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
First of all, before we even get to that, because that right there was just horrific.
Yeah. Yeah. We put that
We had Senator Alex Padilla being arrested
Yeah.
in the federal building where his office is. And not only is he getting arrested, but the committee that he sits on works directly with Homeland
Oh,
Security.
sure. Oh, sure.
And so that whole thing that they try to say that he didn't identify himself, all of that's BS because they know who this guy is.
Sure.
They have to report to him as well.
They do.
So,
They
yeah,
do.
yeah,
First, let me just quickly before we move on to that, because I do have a lot to
yeah,
say about that. But
yeah,
we're talking about, I think, in these three cases, in the military parade,
yeah.
Padilla, and then we'll go to then the shootings.
Mhm.
The reporting of those stories is key to what you take away from them. Now, we've had, misinformation has been used back when they were just, you know, back in Rome when they would have the guy come out in the square and tell them what the emperor wanted them to know. So, I mean, this is
Yeah,
an old
yeah.
technique, and it's effective. That's why it's worked down through the centuries. However, I'm wondering, when will enough of American people just understand that what they're seeing is the truth, not what they're saying, what they're seeing. The official number that the White House is putting out.
That's interesting. That's a profound statement, my brother.
The
Yeah,
official number the White House is putting out for his military parade, that there were 250,000 people out there. Okay,
yeah. That's
that's BS. That's very
mm,
similar to him
mm.
with the whole "my inauguration was larger than Obama's" type of thing. Now it
Right,
worked. It
right.
worked at that. It worked. It'll work once or twice, but he's one of those people that's going to
I
try
don't
to.
even think it worked then, but
Yeah.
that's how his people. It gave them enough. It gave them enough juice to
Right.
be able to just keep rolling with that lie.
Right,
So,
right.
but
But if you
yeah,
look at you mentioned about the No Kings protest, and let me see this now for a second. I've never used this sharing feature. I'm going to see if I can share a screen
all right,
with you for a second. The Philadelphia protest if the No Kings is the one that's being reported as being the largest, and that was
right.
estimated at being 100,000 folks. Now, if anybody saw any photographs of the crowd in Philly, we'll just call that 100,000 folks. That
Right.
is no way 2.5 times the size of what. I mean, that there were not.
Yeah, the parade is not. Yeah, I get what
Correct,
you're
correct,
saying. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
you're
So
right. Yeah,
anyway, it's a nationwide. They're saying that there were 5,000 people at the major ones, at the top ones, at No Kings. I think there were probably more, but we'll just be very conservative with that. Philly had 100,000, Los Angeles 80,000, Chicago 75, Seattle 70, New York 50, Austin had 20. Okay,
hmm
now by the people who were giving out numbers for the Trump parade, who say they're just objective observers, they're saying from 20 to 30,000 tops, which is about
and that's bullshit. All you got to do
yeah.
is look at the crowd.
Well, it could be.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it could
uh,
be. But even at that, I'll give them 30,000, which I think is probably half of that. But I'll give them 30,000. Thirty
okay.
thousand is piss poor. It's terrible. It's terrible
Yeah,
when you think about that. Austin, Texas, had 20,000 people for the No Kings. So I just hope that people start to look at what is use your brains, people. That's what really bothers me.
but that's not going to happen, Howard. We look. It's not going to happen because even with them trying to say 30,000,
Right,
they kept the park and recreation from delivering numbers. They were saying it was like 2,100 people
right, right,
at the actual, parade.
right,
2,100 people.
right.
And that's like 1% of what they just said. But once again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But they're having a hard time trying to push that
right,
because when you look at everything else that's going on,
right.
if you're going to try to say that you got 200,000 people there and you look at that crowd in Philly
Yeah,
and it looked
then there are a
packed.
million in Philly. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? If that's
yeah, yeah,
200,000, there are a million
yeah.
in Philly.
Exactly. It's just nonsense, but they got to spin it.
Right.
They got to spin that crowd because it really makes them look bad.
It
And then
makes them look bad. It,
you got people that just weren't interested. You got some people down there that were like us.
right.
They're curious. They want to give footage So this guy can't say that, hey, it was like this. There's so much footage
Right.
showing how empty everything was.
Right. Right.
And it's hard to spin that.
It's
But
hard.
they will try it.
They'll try it.
They will try it.
Well, to go
Yeah.
now, let's go back to what you were talking about before, to the Padilla thing. That's exactly what they're doing with that. They're trying to say that he came in and lunged at her. I've still yet to see any type of recording where Christine, I don't even see her in the screen, in the frame. All I see is him. So
you talking about? So you see most of the videos when he's coming in from the right and he's trying to ask the question,
right?
And they immediately, first of all, he was standing there,
right,
and he was trying to ask the question, and they started to push him away right then,
right.
And then he tried to step forward. He said, He said, look, I'm Senator Padilla,
right.
and he started to go down a couple other things, but he was trying to talk. And once you start getting pushed around, and you're going to react to it,
right.
And he was like, "What the hell is going on?"
Right.
They take him out of the room and they immediately throw him down.
Right. Now, see,
this is insane. He is in charge. He is the oversight for you guys.
Well, he is the highest ranking. See, this is where, and I hate always giving my little critique of the Democrats, but this is where I really was disappointed how this went. Now, you shouldn't expect that this should happen. This should never happen. You're that shouldn't have happened. It was crazy. However, when I tuned in, because I turned on the news very soon after it happened, so I this was like fresh news. When it was happening, when I was seeing the tape, I was like, "Where are his people?" That was the number one. Where's his aides? Where are his people? I understand.
Well, his aides were right there.
Well, then where are they? Because one
of them was filming. That was getting in, and then you had another one that was trying to talk. And look, his aides. I mean, Howard, they were the two that I saw. Those guys were like 5'9", 5'10". They're gonna get their ass kicked.
Okay,
it wasn't too much that they could do.
Well, I'm not saying that they could stop the Secret Service. What I'm saying, I know
Homeland
I wasn't
Security.
there. I know it's very easy for me to say this. It's like quarterbacking from the couch. I get it, but what I'm saying is that what the Democrats don't do is message well. And this is what, anytime first thing they should have prepared for something like this, the eventuality of something like this jumping off. But they got caught we got caught off guard. Great. But where was yours? Like they were trying to say something. Where is the person saying, this is a U.S. Senator of California? Stop this, Miss Secretary.
Well, I think you need to go back and look.
I saw him say, I'm Senator. I heard him say that. I've heard him say that.
No, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the assistants, the people that were next to him.
Right.
You can't hear them that loud.
No.
But they're trying to defend them like that. But the one thing they did do was get it on tape from beginning to end.
They did. They got it on tape.
So I don't understand. Explain to me more what you mean by how the Democrats at that particular moment weren't doing what they should have been doing.
Because it should have been, she should have been. I understand he's not going to get anywhere fighting Secret Service. So I'm not saying he should physically attack them, something like that. But he has to be more vocal. We got to be more vocal. I'm a U.S. Senator of California. I'm the federal oversight. Put your hands behind your back. Put it behind your back. This is an outrage. This should not be happening. This shouldn't happen in the United States. This is what we need to be saying.
Oh, that's what was happening.
It wasn't what's happening. What's happening is the senator was. Now look, it's not in his nature, obviously. And I'm not saying this is the right strategy. I'm saying this is my strategy. Okay. And what I'm saying is that it's not what he said. I mean, enough for me. And afterward, okay, so that was in the moment. He makes this statement afterward, which was a fine statement, very respectful statement. We need to be out there almost like, I don't want to say we need to emulate Trump because I don't like where politicians go on there, and I don't like that guy. But what would Trump have done? He'd have been out there saying, I demand an apology for this. They need to come down here. This should never happen. That's not what happened. What he did is he went to the Democrat playbook. Here's the Democratic playbook. If they do this to me, imagine what they'll do to a farm worker. Great point. Good point. That point's not a winner. It's not a winner. It's a winner for us, for anybody who's going to vote for him. That's not a winner. I'm telling you.
Then what should he have, then what should they say? In that moment, I hear that you don't like that. I hear that you're saying that it's been done before.
It has to.
I agree with that.
We have to be stronger. I'm sorry.
In what way? Give me an example. Like, okay, instead of him doing that,
right,
maybe he should have got on the phone. Hey, look, get me Joe Rogan. Hey, get me this person.
Yeah.
We need to go ahead and talk about this crap right now. I want everybody to know what was going on and how this is bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
What should
So
be happening.
That's what you're saying.
That's what should be happening because they have. Meanwhile, Kristi Noem was going on Fox News saying this guy came and tried to attack me, and she spun her story out there, and that's the going story. Then you run the tape, and you got the brown senator from California being wrestled to the. I mean, this is how they're spinning it, being wrestled to the ground. So what I'm saying is, they need to get out there stronger with this. That this is she's a liar. They need to come out with that. Forget all this.
But what about the part when they had all the congressmen and everybody on the steps of the Senate? What about that?
What I wanted to see is them coming out there and saying, Kristi Noem, your Secretary of Homeland Security, went on Fox News within hours of this happening and lied to the American people. Is that what you're good with? But they ain't go with that. They need to start telling what exactly these people and our Republican colleagues who say they're for free speech, they're in support of this. In fact, the Speaker of the House is talking about censuring me. They're talking about censuring me for doing oversight in my state when we had expressly asked not for the National Guard to come here. This is now there are going to be people who are going to be on Trump's, be on the, it's not going to work with everybody, but this is like this to me, that was almost. Not almost. I mean, how close do you have to get to the point where it's like civil war? I mean, to me, it was almost like Democrats don't count. If you're not down with MAGA, you don't count. Period. I don't care who you are. And that's the way it seemed. They need to bring that out more, in my opinion, because I don't think, that point, granted, we've had lots happening. I mean, we had two assassinations, two murders and an attempted assassination since then. So this is all going to get lost. By this time next week, they're probably not going to be talking about it.
Something might happen today or tomorrow that's going to keep us jumping to something else next.
Right. I'm just, again, let me give the caveat and that I'm not unreasonable and understanding that I'm not saying, that I know everything and that's what I would do. That's what I would like to think I would do, but I don't know. And but the response needs to be stronger and more accusatory. I'm tired of hearing it was disgusting. This was an outrage. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares that the Democrats are outraged. In fact, they like it. Nobody cares that we don't like any of that. That's not the point. The point is these people are breaking the law and they're lying about it. And they need to be called liars. That's what they need to be called. And they're not being called to the carpet about it.
I disagree to the extent that the Democrats are calling them liars. They are pointing out those things. But once again, as you just stated, the way that I presented it, in terms of a solution and in terms of how to approach it, okay, it could be more like that. But for me, I'm at a point now where does the facts even matter? Like you said, the things that the Dems say is true. It's true in terms of what the GOP is doing. But I guess the way that you feel is how a lot of other people feel, that they're not doing enough. And for me, I'm like, okay, give examples. Like I just gave an example, broke it down, and what it should be done. When I keep hearing everybody say that and I ask them, well, what should they do? It immediately becomes a defensive point where there's talking about, the Democratic Shield, that whole conversation comes into play. No, that's not me. See, I'm different. I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Give me a fucking solution.
Okay, well,
Look. If they're not doing it the right way, like with me, once again, if I'm like all the things that you're saying, if I was in the room with the DNC when it came to all of this stuff, I would be in their face. Look, people don't like the way that you're approaching this. You're not speaking to the, you're not speaking directly to the people who have lost faith in you. Because me, they got me. I'm listening to the facts. But in terms of messaging to people who are tired, exhausted, want this nightmare of all this crap to just be over with, they're looking for some inspiration.
yeah,
Is that what you're
well,
saying?
I think inspiration is going to come when they're willing to not be so to tell it like it is, rather than trying to still keep some decorum. I understand that there's a place for decorum, and I like decorum when everyone's playing by those rules, but we're not playing by those rules right now. And so they need to come out and and just call a spade a spade. That's all I'm saying. Like, we're going to hold them accountable. That's what they said.
Right.
What does that mean? I can't see it. Not the January 6th folks just are all pardoned. Trump is not in the jail. He's not even. I mean, he was. Who's getting held accountable? I don't want to hear that shit because they know, because they're not doing that. So let's not. We can't hold them accountable. I understand. You don't have power. You don't have enough power. People in places of power to hold them accountable right now. I understand that. But I don't understand and don't accept is that you're going to allow them, and you say the Democrats do it, but I don't hear them do it enough. Where they come out and say, they keep saying stuff like, this is, like I said, this is an outrage, this is disgusting, this, all that's true. Okay? But let's talk about what they are actually doing. The Secretary of Homeland Security is not only having a senator who she knows because she works with him, having the Secret Service drag him out, but afterward does not apologize for it, and then goes on Fox News, who, by the way, is, they have the lion's share of the public, so she knows she's speaking to the largest audience she could possibly if she's going to talk to the news.
Right.
And she told a bald-faced lie. Period. But no one's saying that. We're saying, the pundits might be saying it. No one cares. I'm talking about vote. When you say they need inspiration, I don't think people, at least this, like myself, I don't think people who have voted for these people feel like they are willing to go out there and put all their chips in the middle of the table. They're not. They don't seem to. They seem to be just, well, I'm going to say that this is not the way it's supposed to go, and we're going to hold these people accountable. And here's the other thing that I can't stand. I want an investigation. Who's going to investigate? Who's going to investigate? The Department of Justice is going to investigate? What are we talking about here? They just keep acting like we're living in the normal world. We're not living in the normal world. We're not. So, I don't know. They just need to, call it like it is. Say it like it is. And the other side seems to say it like it isn't, but they continually say it, and they have obviously got critical mass of people believing it.
Yeah, you know what? People like drama, and you got to tap into that particular expectation. With the GOP, you're right. Noam's right on there on Fox, just straight shooting the lie. I mean, she's hitting everybody with it. She's getting her story out first,
right?
And make sure that all the red hatters, they know what the talking points are. Then they hit it on all the podcasts, and it's almost concrete. But then you got the Dems doing what you said. Hey, one investigation, this was horrible, blah, blah, blah. One of the things that I think they could do, they say, okay, look, they want to play that way. We're holding up all of these particular nominations and these hearings on this topic until we get something going. They need to do what the GOP does. Tuberville, what he held up all those confirmation hearings.
Yeah.
That's something that the Dems need to be doing.
Well,
But a lot of times they don't do that because they want the country to run smoothly. So when you got Kristi Noem out there and she's saying it, the orange guy's going to repeat it. They are in lockstep with one another. The whole red hat crew cult, everybody.
mm-hmm.
They stick with the lie and they just keep drilling it and they make sure that talking point is out there. But with the Dems, you got somebody over here with one talking point. You got somebody over here with another talking point. Nobody's on the consistent. Nobody's on the same page.
I agree. They're not in lockstep, and they have a big. It's not an excuse. It's true. They do have a big tent, so there are a lot of people they have to appease, but they could get their act together a lot better. My suggestion, again, is that that they just go back and just go over what the Republican talking points are and show just how blatantly wrong they are. That's all. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be effective, but I don't see them doing that enough. I mean, even you were mentioning even about the war. There should be something that the Democrats say or Democratic spokespeople say every day, and every day since the beginning of since January 20th, they should be. This is the inauguration. They should be out there saying the Ukraine war is still going on. The Gaza, Israel's still bombing Gaza. And oh, by the way, the guy who said that these wars all wouldn't have started when he was there. Well, guess what? Now Israel
is getting started while he is here
with Iran, and we're being told, at first they were told that we didn't even know about it, that they didn't know, they weren't down with the plan to go.
They knew about it. They stated that they weren't involved.
They weren't involved
in it, but a lot of people say they were involved. They were helping with intel. Look, this whole thing with Israel and just being in the Middle East with Arab countries. In fact, one thing I always think this is funny when people talk about anti-Semite. Everybody that's from that region is Semitic.
Yeah,
all of them. They're all Semitic, and I just always find that to be funny. But the whole thing with Israel, and somebody said this, and I totally agree with them. Israel uses the U.S. and they take advantage of the U.S.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about it. You get people, when you talk about the people of Palestine, the peaceful people, people, they want to try to say you're supporting Hamas. You're not supporting Hamas.
Right.
But you can never have that conversation. And even on the other side, when you try to start talking about the peaceful people of Israel, then you get people who say, well, so you support the ethnic cleansing in Gaza. No, I don't.
Right.
I just said the peaceful people.
Right.
But you can't have that conversation.
Right.
You can't have that conversation. So with all this stuff that's going on with the orange guy doing it, you got the usual playbook being able to be used in all of this. And Netanyahu isn't going to listen to the orange guy.
No. Well, he's not. Yeah. He's going to continue to bomb and do whatever he can. Yeah. And we're going to support them. But here's my hot take. If you want to, since we're there, I'm not going to say I understand Trump, because once I think that, I'm crazy as he is. But this is what I do believe, that my man is motivated primarily by money, primarily by gathering money and power. That's his thing. I don't believe anybody in the Arab world likes the existence of Israel. Okay, this is my first. I have to put that out there. Some are cool. The Saudis and Kuwaitis and some other. They have a love-hate relationship with them, and they'll deal with them because they're backed by the U.S. But I just don't think that that they really care for Israel being there. All right. So I think that Trump is looking around, just like he calls soldiers, suckers, and all of that. And I do understand his son-in-law is Jewish. I understand that he has a lot of, Jewish alliances. I get that. But I think Donald Trump is looking around saying, why are we supporting Israel when I could be down with everybody in the Arab world and not, I really do. I really believe he's like, because he's looking at it and he's like, what do they, Israel doesn't even have oil. I mean, a significant oil. I'm saying he's like, what are we doing? I think that's what's in the back of his mind. And I think why he's like with Iran. He wants to patch things up with Iran because Iran, like I said, that's part of that Muslim world that he's looking around. He's like, these people are loaded. I don't know why in the world we're like not down with them, and we're like in this little piece of sand near the Gaza Strip. He's like, so I really do believe that slowly but surely, even though he's like the champion of Israel right now in their mind, I just think Trump is like, you know what? If y'all gonna keep making trouble for me like this and trying to mess up my hustle, I might have to distance myself, because that's the way he thinks about this stuff. He doesn't care about loyalties. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. You see how he's treated our allies that have been our allies since the First and Second World War. Israel hadn't even been around that long. He's like, I'm telling you, I really do believe that his deal is, I don't understand why we have like aligned now. Granted. And he's for the big deep pockets. Why is Israel why is Israel so influential on the United States politics? Well, because many of people who are loyal to Israel, whether they be dual citizenship or Israeli, mainly Jewish Americans, have been great significant political donors to both parties. And to the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party. That's why they are able. That's why we back Israel, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we back. I think Trump's looking and saying, "Yo, these dudes got way more cash than y'all." I just think he's like, I don't know if this has been the move.
you know what? That's what his greedy ass would probably.
That's my hot take. Now, I may be wrong, but and I don't think he wants to kick Israel under the bus. That's not what I'm saying. But let Netanyahu keep rocking.
He's basically saying, "Hey, everybody, calm down. We can all make money here." Right. That's what he's saying. And look, that's a perfect example of something that just the bribes alone from Qatar. That's something that you could use to say, look, the 1% only cares about the 1%. It doesn't matter if they're Jewish, doesn't matter if they are Arab, it doesn't matter if they're Asian, none of that. It's all about the money.
That's what I'm saying.
And when we take the time to actually acknowledge that and realize that, then maybe we can start getting rid of these assholes and having people in place that actually are working for us. But they're all the 1%. And it's just insane for people to think that Donald Trump, these followers of his, to think that he really gives a damn about you. He shows it over and over again. When he said that those in the army, those who died are suckers and losers,
right?
That's not enough? That's not the breaking point either?
He has no principles. Principles. That's the whole thing. He has no allegiance to any type of morality or belief system other than like monopoly, other than like winning power and influence and money. And so that's why I think this thing, like this Israel bombing Gaza, I believe Trump's main problem with it right now is this is getting in the way of their development of Gaza. This is, I don't stop. He can talk about bombing and death and all that. I do not believe that Trump really cares anything about those people. In fact, when he first got in office, he was talking about, the place is rubble. Who would want to live there? We need to move. Yeah. He was going to try to move all of them to Egypt and other places.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a bold move.
That right there was just
I mean,
That's cocky. That's
cocky.
beyond bold. That's cocky.
But
Yeah.
that's what. So he's look. I really do believe that you know, does I don't think Trump has any, as far as he's concerned, Israel's fine. He'd like the state of Israel to remain and all that kind of stuff. But don't start he's going to be like, he's a gangster pimp. He's like, you mess with my money, you fuck with my bag, then we're gonna have problems. And that's what they're doing with bombing Iran, And so, now there's some people who think out there that maybe he was, because Israel, he's trying to negotiate this thing where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon.
But that right there is a whole nother topic, because Obama put a deal in place.
Well, it was done. It was done.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, the agreement I predict the agreement they're going to come up with is going to be weaker than the agreement that the Obama administration negotiated.
You think it's going to be a what agreement? A weaker agreement?
A weaker agreement. I think Trump's argument when he came into office was that nuclear agreement was weak and it was terrible and it shouldn't have been signed, and that's why he ended it. Now from my understanding of the agreement, I'm not, I know just what I've read in Washington Post and other places, is that at least we had the right to be able to inspect and go over there and have access to it. I don't think those things are going to be part of the next agreement. I mean, they may have some ability to observe or to look and see what Iran has. But anyway, there's some people who think that even though the U.S. wasn't involved in the bombing of Iran, that we were all right with it, because I think, and maybe they were saying in Trump's mind, if you could crush their nuclear facilities as much as possible, then we would be in a position to be able to negotiate with them.
Yeah. But he doesn't do it the right way. He doesn't understand how to move the pieces on the chessboard at all. So
I don't think he understands that either, because if them bombing Iran, now they're at war. That's the thing. They've been wanting to fight for the longest time. And so I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. That's our thing. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, and I think that's going to bother.
This is something that the Democrats can capitalize on if they do it the right way. But we're dealing with that, but politicians being shot and murdered is something else we're dealing with, because of the constant statements by the orange guy. Just the way that these bad judges, these liberal judges, these statements, those are the things that the Democrats have got to counter.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to keep if you don't counter that, then you have more of this happening. I'm not saying it's going to keep it from happening, but I'm saying you got to fight to make sure that you're changing the minds of people. The main reason they was able to capture the guy was because of his roommate. His roommate was like, hey, you might want to try over here.
Right.
You need more people to start getting it. Like you said, you hope people start seeing the truth.
Right.
Well, you want to stop the orange guy from constantly saying things about these judges.
Well, again, we got to deal with them, the spinning of the situation. I mean, already, and that's what I took some notes. Already, Elon Musk tweeted that he accused the shooter of being a liberal who was upset at the Democrats. Okay, that's why he had
that's bullshit.
Oh, I know
that's bullshit.
Charlie Kirk blamed Tim Walz for criticizing Trump and then appointing this guy to a committee. He had appointed him to a business committee with 40 other people, businessmen. It's almost impossible to responsibly put together a committee of businessmen without getting some Republicans involved. So that's what that was. James Woods again is blamed Tim Walz for
man. James Woods, man. What, man?
But
that guy is him and John Voight. Great actors that are just huge disappointments.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I'm bringing those people up because they have large followings. This James Woods isn't like, just some Joe. he's a nut job if you ask me. But that's what he is. And Senator Mike Lee of Utah is blaming Walz again because he appointed him to a business advisory board, and so I'm all of this reminds me of this is always their first move when something like this happens. It's like January 6th. January 6th, who were those people? They were Antifa in disguise. They always come up with something else. And so in this one, where this guy, according to his roommate, was a Trump supporter, Trump voter, evangelical Christian, the guy did sermons on, traveled around giving talks and sermons about anti-abortion things, speeches. Obviously he is somebody who is was extreme right. Okay. Yeah. But their reaction is we got to turn this guy into somebody from the left, a nutty left job guy, before people figure out that he's that way because of the type of vitriol that Trump has been spewing. So those are the things that, again, I hope that the Democrats, not that you want to sit there and, you don't want to go back and forth, but you have to make sure that people understand, because you can't rely on the press anymore, that, the mainstream press, the big cable press, to do this correctly, to hammer home the fact that this guy was an evangelical Christian MAGA guy. And he went and did this stuff because because the Republican Party, forget just Trump, but Trump does it. The Republican Party has demonized, not criticized, demonized Democrats and people who live in a lifestyle that doesn't hurt other people, but they don't agree with.
Yeah. Yeah, they've definitely done a good job of that. And another thing, like you're saying, trying to get that particular narrative out. Once again, that's their playbook. They do it very well. But in this situation, there was enough people out there, like the guy's roommate, to basically counter that. And that's not picking up the amount of steam that it wants. But the fact that you have these politicians being killed, and then you have people like Charlie Kirk, James Wood, they're totally ignoring the bad shit, so they accept how this guy is.
Yeah.
When I look at James Woods, look at John Voight, look at Charlie Kirk, I look at Brandon Tatum, I look at King Randall, I look at all these people. You see this, and they don't give a damn about how it affects people. They don't give a damn how it affects the people next to them. They don't give it. They don't care. And they keep supporting this guy, and they keep trying to say that he's for America. But yet the people that he keeps hurting are Americans. Even when he's taking immigrants, these are the immigrants that he's going after. He said he would go after.
Right.
These people are hardworking people that add to our economy, that help grow our GDP. If you're going to go after the criminals, keep those 1,500 people from January 6th, keep their ass in prison. Well, hey, don't let the Tate brothers come into the country.
Right.
Don't be letting all these people out that their fraud hurt people's lives, hurt their bank account. I'm just like, it's to the point where I'm just like, yo, people, stop saying this guy's for us, because everything that he's doing is the opposite of what you're trying to say it is. And it makes me angry, and it makes me frustrated, especially when you're talking to a brother and they're like, you, listen here, Negro, do you realize that what we're dealing with is the that you're saying you're fighting for?
Right.
We are steadily going back to Jim Crow. The GOP has broken our collective vote to the point where it's becoming almost impossible to get back to the rights that were secured for us during the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And trying to get brothers to see this, you're fighting misinformation. You're fighting these pro-black imposters who have no solution. They have no way of backing up anything that they say. The lack of common sense in this country
Well, that's
is why we are where we
well,
are
that's what
right
I say.
now.
That's the most frustrating thing to
Yeah,
me is that
yeah,
the things, it's one thing to be, listen to somebody, and because you don't know anything, and they're a charismatic, eloquent speaker, you decide to go with that narrative because it sounds
hmm
credible to you. But
yeah,
when they're telling you the sky is green, and then you go outside and you look up and it's blue, why are
yeah,
you walking around still saying it's green? That's
yeah,
the thing. That's the thing.
hmm
There are so many examples of some of the things you hear, like you said, some of those brothers say and others say, that if you just look around or just open your eyes, you can see that what you're saying or what they've told you isn't true.
right.
you know you don't you don't have to believe what I'm telling you. That's the other thing that
hmm
gets me frustrated.
Yeah,
You don't have to believe what I'm telling you,
right,
but I believe if you look at A, B, and C, I can prove that what you've been told and you believe isn't true. So
correct.
why don't you
Yeah,
just start there? They don't even want to start there. That's the
they
thing that
don't. They
frustrates
never
me.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Just understand that what you believe isn't true, not because I'm telling you, because I'm showing you,
right.
because
But
you
but
can
they never
find this for
want to.
yourself. Go
They
ahead.
never want to show. They never want to lay it out. They never want to put exhibits A, B, and C in place. They never want to talk about that because they don't have that, or they don't even understand how they connect. They have nothing, so they immediately deflect. They say, "Well, if you have to ask that question, then I guess if you don't know, my brother, then you just don't know."
Right.
And I hear that, and I'm always saying to myself, and I'm saying to them, okay, you're right. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you to educate me. Connect the dots for me, my brother. I got questions. They don't want the questions
Mm-hmm.
because they can't answer them. They prefer jumping to another talking point. They say things in a manner and they talk at you, and they say these things as if they are already fact. And when you want to say, hold up, let's stop right here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do that. They may say something like, hey, don't interrupt them. Let me get everything out. And when they get it out and you want to go back and talk to them about it and ask questions on it, they want to move on.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing. They can't connect the dots. They lack humility to admit that they've been conned. That's what's going on right now with this orange guy. Have doubled down on shit so hard that they're unwilling to admit that this guy really, yeah, he had me going. He convinced me. I mean, I was a Rashad McCants fan.
Right.
I'm a Rashad McCants fan. But I had to admit that Rashad is an idiot. He
Right.
says some wild, crazy shit.
Right.
I eventually I had to admit that.
Yeah.
Everybody, yo, Couch, man, he's crazy, man. You
Right.
know how he is on campus. Everybody talks about it. Yeah, man, but he's ball. He said, man, look, Couch, he can ball. But nobody wants to play with him because he's an asshole.
Right.
Eventually I had to admit, you know what, everybody? He's an asshole.
Yeah.
I was wrong. See, I'm mature enough to admit that, damn, I made a mistake. But you got all these people that are following behind this guy, sniffing his diapers, all this crap.
But
And they just won't admit that, hey, he ain't what he is. But once again, using him still gets what they want. So,
sometimes, yeah,
yeah.
sometimes I just don't. I don't. Unless you're a
Mm,
a white man who makes at the least six figures a year, at the least, and that makes you the bottom rung of of people who are really benefiting from this guy.
yeah.
But if you're a
Yeah.
white man who's making at least six figures a year,
Yeah.
you can, I will say that I can see how you might want to delude yourself into believing what he's saying and do those things, because he is not stepping on your toes whatsoever. He's not saying anything that's personally offensive to you, even though you should be offended by how he's
Yeah.
offending everyone else. But that's another
Yeah.
story. What I
Yeah.
don't get are these brothers or women or other uh, groups that support Trump when he's just openly disrespecting them. That's what blows my
Yeah,
mind. That's what blows my
yeah,
mind.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
That's
I'm like,
yeah.
dude, why? I don't get that. I don't understand how that. I don't have. I've never. To my knowledge, I guess you don't recognize it, but I can't relate. I'll put it that way. I can't relate to that level of self hatred. I can't relate to that.
I can. I never want to be able to relate to that
That's true.
level of self hate. It's just insane. And when you hear people say, "Well, I didn't think he was going to get rid of, just innocent immigrants," I say, "You're not listening to this guy.
Right.
He said all of this. The dude put a Muslim ban in place. He calls every country that isn't in Europe a shithole country."
Yeah, he added some more countries. He's supposed to have added some more countries today. I haven't seen the list yet, though.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll find
But
out.
yeah, man. Yeah, we got some other stuff that's gonna probably be happening real soon. But anyway, man, we're gonna hit some people with some more stuff later on. Right now we're gonna sign off. Everybody,
Right.
thank you for checking us out.
All right.
I'm Couch. This is my man Howard.
Y'all
Talk to you
take care.
soon. Peace.